Hi, I'm back from vacation and I did so much more yarn shopping than I expected to do. I mean, obviously, I expected to go yarn shopping. When I make my itinerary on my vacation, I flagged a bunch of yarn stores that I wanted to go to. I didn't even get to all the ones that I planned on going to, but I ended up bringing home a lot more yarn than I expected I would. Uh, Usually, when I travel, I don't splurge on yarn. I guess I end up bringing home some minis or some souvenirs and stuff. I like to look at local yarns wherever I go. But on this particular cruise, which was to New England and parts of Atlantic Canada, I brought home a lot. So I thought it warranted its own haul video. Normally, I would just talk about this stuff during the podcast, but like I mentioned before, I'm kind of in this awkward week in between two trips, and I wasn't planning on doing a podcast right now, but I've actually got a lot to talk about. So I just thought I'd do a little haul. This was fun, and most of this was like really quite local to where I was when I bought it. I might not remember specific information about each yarn store. I went to a lot and I'm not great at remembering names about things like that. So I'll put any information on the screen. I'll put links in the description. And at a bunch of them, I remembered to take some footage so I could show you kind of what it looks like on the inside. Certainly not as much as I would have for a fiber trail video, but I tried to get a little glimpse to be able to show you because it's fun to see what these different stores look like. So I will, if I remember to get some, I will plug it in over my talking here, and I'll have any information about the places that I visited for you to check up on if you want to later. So my first stop was Boston Fiber Company in Boston, obviously. It was really cute. I had another yarn store flagged in Boston, but unfortunately we didn't have time to get to it. It was a little bit out of our way. This one was very great. It was in this little like sort of artist area. I think it was near an art school, and there was a lot of little like design studios or different artisanal shops. I enjoyed looking around. The owner was very helpful and did show me a lot of local dyers or things that they have in stock, but nothing really grabbed my attention. This was the first stop of the trip. I didn't want to buy something for the sake of buying something. I wanted to actually enjoy the thing I'm getting or fall in love with the yarn that I'm bringing home. So the thing that I actually ended up purchasing, I don't believe was particularly local. I just thought it was really pretty, and I liked this set of minis. It turns out it's a spring set, which I can absolutely see. It's quite a spring palette, but even though we're coming on autumn, I don't know. I really like the colors, and I decided to take it. It is Spring Garden Fingering Mini Set. It's a 75-25 sock blend from Maker Wool. So I'm not sure what I'll do with this. I would say I'll add it to my granny stripe blanket, but I'm pretty sure I had a not too dissimilar set of minis that I already added to that blanket, like next to each other, and it might look kind of funny. The colors were very similar to this set, so maybe I'll hold on to this and try to make something special out of this. That was all I got at Boston. That was my only yarn stop in Boston, but our next port stop was in Portland, Maine. In Portland, I only had one yarn store flagged that I stopped in at. It was called Nitwit Yarn Shop. I have the card here. It was very cute. Again, the attendant was super helpful and pointed out local stuff to me. They actually had the very helpful system of putting a little icon. It was a little lobster icon on any of the tags in the store so that you could tell what you were looking at was local. Interestingly, there was not a lot of local dyers, but several major yarn companies that we're all familiar with had the lobster on them, so I believe are from that region. I was tempted by several things, including like a tote bag. They had really cute branded tote bags with their illustration on them of a little black bear knitting. I thought that was so cute. But immediately after the yarn store, I was headed to a baseball game, and I knew from looking at the bag policy that they don't technically allow you to bring bags in. So I was kind of nervous about making a purchase that I wouldn't be able to bring into the ball game in a few minutes. I had already purchased my ticket for the ball game. I didn't have anywhere to stash a purchase if I bought it, and they wouldn't let me take it in. So I didn't want to to risk it. It turned out I probably would have been fine. I saw a lot of people bringing bags in, and it seems like a rule that they don't really enforce. But regardless, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen in my stories that all I bought was this little mini that I kind of stuck in my pocket so that I could take it with me. And funny enough, this is from Dirty Water Dye Works, which I learned when I was in Boston Fiber Company is a dyer local to Boston, actually. So I didn't pick up anything of theirs while I was in Boston, but the next day in Portland, I did find this mini that I thought would make a nice addition to my granny stripe blanket. So this one is an 80-20 sock blend, and the colorway is called Cool Waters, which seemed appropriate for a cruise. And then I also picked up this sticker, which is very cute. They had a whole series of stickers. I don't know who they're from. It doesn't say on the back. I will do some digging and add that link to the description if I can find it. But they do a whole series about the national parks, and there's sort of like national park patches or artwork that include yarn. So some of the pebbles on the beach are yarn, the sun is a ball of yarn. And I just think it's so cute because, my mom and I did spend our morning on East End Beach in Portland looking for sea glass and, dipping our feet in the water, and we had such a nice time. So even though that's not technically Acadia National Park, which is what this represents, we did sort of visit parts of Acadia the next day, and I just thought that was such a lovely little souvenir. And I saw some for other national parks that I've visited or been in the region of since I started doing my yarn travels, and I'm sad that I haven't seen these before because I think that would make a cool thing to collect. So the next day was still in the state of Maine. We were in Harbor, Maine. We did not have much time to look around. It's difficult to get on and off the cruise ship in Bar Harbor because the cruise ship can't actually pull up and dock in the city. They have to use like little shuttles. They hire local whale watch boats to be a shuttle, and it took hours to get off the boat because you have to get in line and get a ticket, and we misunderstood the process, and we almost didn't get off the boat until about 11 a.m. when we thought we would be able to get off at 8. So we didn't have as much exploring as we thought we would be able to do. We basically had an hour to eat lunch and pop into a couple shops before we had to come down for a kayaking excursion that we had booked, which was super fun. I really loved sea kayaking. That was really interesting. There was no yarn stores in downtown Bar Harbor. I hadn't flagged any because I couldn't find any. However, while we were walking up and down this little tourist thoroughfare, I noticed some skeins of yarn in the window of like an artisan shop. So I went inside, and this very local maker hand spins and sells her yarn in this shop. Her name is Sue Hill. The company is called Island Yarns. And I got this little blurb about the artist when I purchased it, but she lives on Little Cranberry Island. The owner of the shop told me it's not far at all from Bar Harbor. It's one of the coastal islands there. She had a little handful, I think I took footage of this, of display of not too many skeins of yarn, maybe 20 or 30 were out on display in the store. It's very pretty. I chose this gray. It varies a lot. There's lots of different tones of gray in there. It's clearly hand spun. It's very soft. It is 50% merino, 25 silk, 25 alpaca, and I love it. There's only 130 yards in here. I just got the one skein because being hyper local, a lot of the fiber comes from local animals. It's hand spun nearby. This was $60 a skein, which is more than I would normally spring for. But like I said, I love to look for local yarns. I really enjoy using yarn as a souvenir, and I thought it does not get more local than this. They don't even have a yarn store. It's just in a gift shop. So this will turn into something very special, likely a hat or something. I really don't know. But it was just too perfect a souvenir to pass up. So this was my first little splurge on our trip. The next day, we were in St. John, New Brunswick, which is where I really went off the deep end, so to speak. I bought a lot of yarn in St. John. The bulk of what I bought was in St. John. This was our first stop in Canada, which means it was our first stop without cell phone reception. We were kind of blundering around, stopping at chain restaurants, mostly Tim Hortons, to use free Wi-Fi when we spotted them. We ended up in this like shopping mall somehow. I'm not really sure. Like it was like connected to the city market. There's a very cute little city market with a lot of handmade things that we were browsing. And there was like an underground walkway that ended up in a shopping mall. We didn't purposefully enter the shopping mall. Anyway, we're wandering around. We're a little stuck. We don't know where to go. We don't have reception, but we can see in the distance like a Tim Hortons sign. So we're making our way to Tim Hortons because I want to go to the yarn stores that I have flagged in the morning while I know they're open. And I know if we make it to Tim Hortons, I can use the Wi-Fi and I can locate the yarn store. So we're walking along in this shopping mall, and as soon as we turn the corner and get just about right up to Tim Hortons, the yarn store is right next to it. It's in the mall. I didn't know. It's called Cricket Cove. It was gorgeous. They had so many beautiful window displays, and it was like right there across from Tim Hortons inside of a shopping mall. It was a funny coincidence for me. They had a lot of local stuff at Cricket Cove. It was a very cute setup. They had a bunch of commercial too. I could hear the owner helping somebody local with their project and choosing some commercial yarns. They had a nice local display in this kind of second area that they have, and truly lots to choose from. I had a hard time choosing something very local there because they just had so many options. I feel like that's not often the case. I'm usually asking them to point out what is local to me. It's not always evident based on the way it's merchandised. And when they do, I'm kind of having a little browse, but it's not always what I was looking for. But this one, there was so much good local yarn, and not just local dyers, like locally spun or like local fiber itself. So the first thing I picked out is from a local yarn company called Lichen and Lace. This is an 80-20 sock blend as well. And again, I just picked out, I thought it was cute. These little rust and orange and sage colors on a cream base. The colorway is called Peony. And I just thought this would make a nice addition to my granny stripe blanket. I love to pick up a mini in a local yarn store to add to my blanket. So I was carrying around this little guy when I stumbled upon this display. I bought a sweater kit. It's so pretty. So it doesn't come with the pattern, but this informational card refers you to the pattern for the Lunenburg pullover kit, which, as the store owner explained to me, Lunenburg is somewhere nearby, and the person that authored this pattern is actually local. This kit is also from Lichen and Lace. I mean, like, how could I resist? And at first I shied away from it. It has a price tag of $140 on it, but it's Canadian dollars. And after I thought about it, the exchange rate is very favorable to American shoppers. It's basically like getting 26% off everything you buy. It's a very rustic yarn. It's a little crunchy. It's not super soft. I think it will soften with blocking and some wool wash, but the base is called Rustic Heather Sport. It's 100% Canadian wool. Each of these skeins is 56 grams and 215 yards. And I'm just in love with this set. So let me show you, first of all, that's one of the contrast colors. This is my base color, my main color. It's called Coal. Just a beautiful heather charcoal gray. And then it comes with 4 contrast colors. Oh, I'm in love with this. So this one is Birch, Sky, Pollen, and over here we have Shrub. Like, I truly can't tell if this is in frame or not, but how pretty is this set? And I think I do actually intend to make the Lunenburg pullover with it, because I just think it's the most perfect souvenir to use local yarns and a local pattern and just end up with this pretty winter pullover. So I'm thrilled with this. It's just, I think this is my favorite purchase of the whole trip. I'm so enthralled, and I'm excited for winter to cast this on. So that was one of 2 yarn stores that I had flagged in St. John. Later, well, this is from the city market, which is not where the yarn store was. When I found the second yarn store, which was Good Vibrations, very cute. It had a lot of finished objects for sale that were very adorable. Lots of little felted animals or woven scarves and things. It was as much artisanal goods as it was fiber. They had a lot of what's it called, like roving for sale, and for felting and lots of weaving thread and things. But I settled on incredibly soft. They had a bunch of different colors of this alpaca. It is Peruvian superfine alpaca, and these are hefty skeins. They're 8 ounces, so each of these has 595 yards in it, and it does identify as worsted weight. So theoretically, I could make a lightweight like pullover or cardigan from this, because I bought 2, and that's about just short of 1,200 yards of worsted. They had a lot of different color combinations because there's this sort of thin strand that they use to weave it together, and then it looks like it's 2-ply of a thicker strand woven into that. So between those 3 strands, they had a lot of different colors, but you could tell that they weren't dyed. They were all natural alpaca fiber, and they were just using different colored fleeces to make different combinations. And kind of waffled between this one and one that was the same brown but with a dark gray. But in the end, I thought this one was so warm and like cozy looking. It is incredibly, incredibly soft, and it's not spun locally. It is branded Good Vibrations because the yarn store imports it and I guess portions it into the skeins, but she said that they don't spin it there. They import it in the state it's in. But either way, it seemed like a good deal to me. Each of these was $45 Canadian, which again is, I'm paying 73% of that as an American. So $90 Canadian for a sweater was about, what, $65 American? I don't think that's bad at all for a sweater. So I walked away from this day in St. John with 2 sweater quantities, and I paid less than $200 for both, and a mini skein. So our last port was Halifax, Nova Scotia. I had earmarked 3 different yarn stores to stop at there, and we actually only had time to find one of them. Sort of. Like, we found one of them, but I also stumbled upon some yarn elsewhere. This was, for me, on this trip, an unusual amount of stumbling upon yarn in not yarn stores. That's not common, you know. I mean, I'm sure you know that. Like, how rare is it to just find yarn in the wild? But I did that several times on this trip, which felt good. So the one proper yarn store that I did go to was called The Loop. It was very cute. I got there right when it opened. The owner was talking to me for a while and being very helpful. I had noticed looking in other Halifax gift shops. One, by the way, which just like randomly sold some fiber crafting things. There was like project bags, specifically labeled knitting project bags or notions in not knitting stores. Again, just like a weird phenomenon for me. I suppose people in coastal Canada just knit more in general, and it's more common. But I had noticed in some of those gift shops that there was a lot of thrummed mittens for sale, lots of different places, which I had heard of before but never done. If you're not familiar, thrummed mittens are, they use this sort of little tuft called a thrum, which I think historically was left over like a mill end sort of thing from spinning, but it's like a little tiny tuft of unspun fleece that you kind of twist up a little bit and use to make a stitch. So it makes a tiny puff of fiber from the outside of your work, but from the inside of your work, there's these tails that kind of create like a layer of bouncy, thick fleece on the inside for extra insulation. So I had seen thrummed mittens for sale in several Nova Scotia shops, and I was thrilled to find a local dyer selling kits to make your own thrummed mittens. So these are from the brand Fleece Artist. This is 100% merino. Yes, Fleece Artist is from Halifax. I had seen a lot of her skeins in the Loop yarn store, which had a lot of local stuff around. But these kits intrigued me the most because I had seen the thrummed mittens around everywhere, and I just kind of thought, this is not something that I see all the time, and it seems to be very popular here, and they have the kits here. So I think I will pull the trigger and pick up a kit to make myself some thrummed mittens. The kit was $49 Canadian. And the yarn itself to make the mittens is all these warm kind of gray, mauve, purple variations. But the fleece that it comes with to make the thrums is this bright pink and blue. And I just think it would be so, so pretty. You can kind of see it. It does come with the pattern on the label for how to make the mittens. You can see the tiny tufts of fiber that show through on the outside of the mitten. So this one I'm very excited about. It just seems so local. And I also picked out this felting kit. It's just an embroidery kit where you flat felt. It looks like the surface of the moon. And I just thought that's such a cool decorative piece to have. I love astronomy and learning about space and space travel. And this was $28 Canadian. And I just thought it was so cute. So I brought these two up to the register, and the store owner said, wow, you did a great job of choosing local stuff. And I didn't even realize, it says in the corner, this is from the Lunenburg Makery. Lunenburg, again, I don't know where it is, but it keeps popping up on my yarn projects. So this is a local kit, and so is this. So very pleased with myself for finding more hyper local stuff. The shop owner had some tips for me for making from mittens. And she did tell me that thrum mittens were developed, or I don't know if invented is the right word, because I'm sure it wasn't maybe one invention, but the origin of thrum mittens is in coastal Canada. So it's from the region. And she said her tips for making thrum mittens are, well, first of all, she pulled off a piece of fiber from a display she had nearby, and she folded it, and she showed me you want to make a figure 8 with it and kind of felt the middle to be around the thickness of the yarn you're working with. And then she also said her best tip for making thrum mittens is make all the thrums at the beginning. Don't think you're going to knit to the stitch you're on, make a thrum, add it. It slows you down so much. She said just make all the thrums at the beginning, and then you can just grab each one as you need them when you're making your mittens. So another thing that I will not be casting on very soon, because even though it's Labor Day and it feels like fall in my brain, outside and in my body, it feels like summer because it's going to be over 90 degrees here all week. So I'm not looking to make my super warm winter mittens right now, but I will cast these on in the winter, and I'm very much looking forward to it because it's such a cool, unique thing that will absolutely always remind me of my trip. And the last yarn purchase I made on my trip was, again, not somewhere I expected to go, but there was a local knitwear and tartan shop. Of course, Nova Scotia is literally called New Scotland, and there's a lot of Scottish heritage there. A lot of the products that they were selling were the Nova Scotia tartan, which is very popular. Or there was this one shop in particular, Northern Waters Knitwear and Tartan Shop, that sold a lot of tartans. Or you could, look up your old Scottish or old Irish name and see which products they had that refer to that particular clan or heritage. But they did, in this store, we found 2 locations of this store actually. They did have local yarn. They told me this is from Prince Edward Island. I grabbed these out of the sale bin because they had a lot of yarns, but they were all this rather rustic, woolly. It was nice, but maybe not what I would normally tend towards, but it was really, really good sale price. This was 30% off, and it was $8.95 Canadian. So I believe ultimately in US dollars, I paid less than $10 for these 2 skeins of this local Prince Edward Island wool. And I don't know, I thought I could just make a gift out of this, maybe a hat or something for a loved one, because nice local fiber that I wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to buy. And again, it wasn't a yarn store. I thought I was walking in to look for a tartan scarf and I found a yarn section. How odd. That doesn't happen to me here. Very cute store. Clearly geared towards tourists, but also sold a lot of yarn and knitting notions and crochet hooks and things like that. So definitely a cool stop if you happen to be in the area. All right, so that's my yarn haul. Somehow I ended up bringing home more yarn souvenirs than not yarn souvenirs, but I regret nothing. I can't wait until I have thrum mittens and a colorwork yoke pullover that are all local fibers and designed locally, and I brought them home with me. And it's so fun to kind of prolong the trip a little bit by having these memories both in the fiber and in the patterns, and to be able to make more memories about the trip after it's over a little bit. I had a lot of fun. I did a lot of yarn shopping, and I hope you enjoyed coming along with me. This was an extra video again, so if you enjoyed, I hope you click the like button below and subscribe so you can check back for regular videos such as my Fiber Trail series, my regular podcast. You know, there's holidays coming up, there's Fiber Festival season coming up. There's a whole lot of videos that I'll be coming out with in the near future. So I hope to see you back here for those. And until next time, bye.